was standing in my own dining room, holding a glass of water that suddenly felt too heavy to lift, when my mother-in-law, Ruth Calder, calmly decided to rewrite my life. "My son deserves a wife who understands structure," she said, sliding a printed document across the table like it was a business deal. "From today, I'll be overseeing your marriage." I blinked, waiting for the punchline. Waiting for anyone to laugh. No one did. I turned to my husband, Evan, searching his face for confusion, for anger, for anything that told me this wasn't real. He didn't even hesitate. "I agreed to this," he said quietly. That was the moment my stomach dropped. Not because of Ruth. I expected this from her. But Evan. That silence, that calm agreement, it felt like betrayal wrapped in politeness. My hands started shaking. "You agreed to what exactly?" Ruth leaned back, satisfied, like she had already won. "To restore order," she said. And just like that, I realized something terrifying. This wasn't a conversation. This was an ambush. And I had just walked straight into it. If you've ever been blindsided by someone you trusted, you already know, this is where everything changes. Ruth didn't wait for my response. She picked up the paper and began reading it out loud like she was announcing law. No independent financial decisions. No major life choices without consultation. Weekly check-ins with me regarding household management. I felt my chest tighten with every word. "Excuse me," I finally said, my voice cracking. "This is my marriage." Ruth didn't even look at me. "It's a family structure," she corrected. I turned to Evan again. "Say something." He sighed like I was being difficult. "Maya, it's not that serious. Mom is just helping us stay stable." Stable. I felt like I was being erased in real time. "And what happens if I say no?" Yes. That's when Ruth finally looked at me and smiled. "I've already taken precautions." That smile wasn't kind. It was calculated. And I felt something cold crawl up my spine. Because whatever precautions meant, I had a feeling I was about to find out the hard way. That night, I sat on the edge of my bed, laptop glowing in the dark, trying to log into our joint bank account. I tried again. Access denied. My heart started racing. This wasn't a glitch. I checked my email and there it was. "Your account permissions have been updated." Updated. Removed. I walked straight into the living room where Evan was scrolling on his phone like nothing had happened. "You locked me out of our account." Yes. He didn't even look surprised. "It's temporary," he said. Temporary. That word hit harder than anything else. Because it meant he thought this was normal. "Temporary until when?" "Until things are under control," he replied. Under control. I stood there, staring at the man I married, realizing something I never thought I would. I wasn't his partner anymore. I was a liability he was managing. And the worst part, Ruth wasn't the only one controlling my life anymore. He was helping her. I couldn't sleep that night. Every moment from the past 2 years started replaying in my mind like scenes from a movie I had misunderstood. Every time Ruth suggested something and Evan agreed. Every time my opinion got brushed aside. Every time I felt small, but told myself I was overreacting. I wasn't overreacting. I was being trained to accept less. And now it had escalated. This wasn't just Ruth being controlling. This was Evan choosing her over me, again and again, until I barely had a voice left. I sat in the bathroom, staring at my reflection. My eyes looked tired. Not just from tonight. From everything. But then something shifted. Because for the first time I didn't feel confused. Felt clear. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was control. And control only works when the other person stays quiet. I wiped my tears, took a deep breath, and whispered something I hadn't felt in a long time. "This ends." They thought I would adjust. They thought I would accept it. They were wrong. The next morning I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't question anything. And that confused them. Ruth watched me carefully over breakfast. "You seem calmer," she said. Smiled. "I've been thinking." Maybe structure isn't a bad thing. Evan looked relieved. Too relieved. That's when I knew. I needed them comfortable. Because comfortable people get careless. So I started paying attention. Every phone call Ruth took in private. Every time Evan avoided eye contact when money came up. Every small decision I was no longer included in. And then I saw it. A notification on Evan's phone while he was in the shower. A transfer. Large one. Not to any account I recognized. I didn't touch the phone. I didn't react. But something inside me sharpened. Because this wasn't just about control anymore. This was about something they were hiding. And I had just found the first crack. I waited 2 days before bringing it up. Not because I was scared, but because timing matters when you're dealing with people who lie easily. Evan was making coffee when I leaned casually against the counter. Hey, I saw a transfer notification pop up on your phone the other day. His hand froze midair. Just for a second. But that second told me everything. Oh, that, he said quickly. Just moving money around. Where to? He shrugged. Savings. We both knew that wasn't true. 'Cause we already had savings. And suddenly, the air between us felt heavy. I didn't know we had another account, I said carefully. We don't, he snapped, too fast, too sharp. Then he softened his tone. Maya, please don't start overthinking things again. There it was. That word. Overthinking. The easiest way to make someone doubt what they clearly see. But I didn't back down this time. I just nodded slowly. Right, I said. But inside something locked into place. Because that wasn't just a lie. That was panic. And panic only shows up when there's something to hide. Ruth became more confident by the day. She started giving instructions instead of suggestions. Maya, don't cook tonight. I've already decided the menu. Maya, I've reorganized your schedule. Your schedule. Like I was an employee. Not a wife. But I noticed something strange. For someone who acted so in control, she avoided details. Whenever I asked simple follow-up questions, she would redirect or dismiss me. Trust me, I know what I'm doing, she would say. That wasn't confidence. That was deflection. So I leaned into it. I started asking more questions, but gently like I was learning from her. What made you decide to move the money that way? Is that how you've always handled accounts? She smiled, thinking she was teaching me. But her answers didn't line up. Small contradictions. Tiny slips. And those tiny slips started forming a bigger picture. She didn't just want control. She needed it. And people who need control, they're usually hiding something they can't afford to lose. That night I did something I should have done a long time ago. I stopped depending on them. I opened a private bank account. Just mine. No shared access. No permissions. No control. Felt small at first, like I was sneaking around. But then I realized something powerful. I wasn't sneaking. I was protecting myself. I transferred a small amount from my personal freelance work. Money Evan never paid attention to. Then I made a call. My college friend Nina was now a lawyer. I didn't tell her everything. Not yet. But I asked one question that made my heart pound. What happens if your spouse moves money without telling you? There was a pause on the other end. Then her voice got serious. That depends. Were you supposed to know about it? No. I wasn't. And suddenly, this didn't feel like a family issue anymore. Felt bigger, riskier, and maybe even dangerous. I started digging. Quietly, carefully. I went through old emails, downloaded past bank summaries, even checked tax documents we had filed together. First it looked normal. Small expenses. Regular transfers. Then I zoomed out. That's when I saw it. Pattern. Money had been moving in small amounts for months. Always just under the level that would raise suspicion. But recently, the amounts had grown. This wasn't random. This was planned. And the timing lined up perfectly with something else. Ruth becoming more controlling. More involved. More desperate. I leaned back in my chair, heart racing. Because I wasn't just uncovering secrets anymore. I was uncovering a system. And systems don't build themselves overnight. Which meant one thing. This had been going on long before I ever noticed. Dinner was tense that night. Ruth was unusually focused, flipping through her phone while eating. Then she said something she didn't mean to say out loud. "We need to finalize everything before the quarter ends." Froze. Evan looked up sharply. "Mom." But it was too late. I set my fork down slowly. "Finalize what?" Ruth smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Just family finances." Family finances. Well, that wasn't it. Because Evan looked nervous. And Ruth. She looked like she was calculating. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just about control anymore. There was a deadline, plan, an end goal. And whatever they were doing, it was almost complete. That night I asked Evan something simple. "Are we in debt?" He didn't answer right away. He just stared at me. And in that silence, got my answer. "It's complicated," he finally said. I shook my head slowly. "No, it's not. Because debt isn't complicated. Hiding it is." "How much?" I asked. He ran a hand through his hair. "Maya, please just trust me." Trust. That word again. Used like a shield. Used like a weapon. And suddenly I realized something that made my chest tighten. He wasn't just lying. He was trapped too. But instead of fixing it, he chose to drag me down with him. I wasn't supposed to find the file. It was left open on the laptop, probably by accident. But once I saw it, I couldn't look away. Loan documents. Multiple. Signed under both our names. Name. My signature. Sup. I never signed them. My hands started shaking. This wasn't just manipulation anymore. This was fraud. Ruth hadn't just taken control of my marriage. She had used my identity. And Evan, he knew. That was the part that hurt the most. Because betrayal is one thing. But being used, that changes everything. I wasn't supposed to hear that conversation. But I did. I was standing just outside the living room, my hand frozen on the wall, when Ruth's voice cut through the silence. "She won't leave," she said confidently. Where would she go? Evan didn't argue. That hurt more than anything. 'Cause it meant he believed it too. "She doesn't have access to money anymore," Ruth continued. "She'll adjust. They always do. They always do." Like I was just another case study in control. I pressed my lips together, forcing myself not to react. Because in that moment something shifted inside me. They thought I was stuck, powerless, dependent. And that assumption, that was their biggest mistake. Because while they were busy tightening their grip, I had already started building my way out. They just couldn't see it yet. I quietly stepped back into the hallway, my heart steady now. Not broken, not scared, focused. Because for the first time since all this started, I wasn't reacting anymore. I was planning. I turned my pain into proof. Every night after they went to sleep, I sat with my laptop and organized everything. Screenshots of transfers, copies of emails, documents I wasn't meant to see. Built timelines, connected dates, matched amounts. At first it felt overwhelming. But then it became clear. There was a pattern to everything. And patterns are powerful. Because they tell stories people can't deny. I even recorded small conversations. Nothing illegal, just enough to capture inconsistencies. Ruth's changing explanations. Evan's nervous slips. Piece by piece I stopped feeling like a victim. And started feeling like someone building a case. Because that's exactly what this had become. Not an argument. Not a family issue. And I wasn't going to walk away empty-handed. Not this time. I met Nina in a quiet cafe. I handed her everything. She didn't speak at first, just read. Her expression slowly changed. From curiosity to concern. Then she looked up at me. "Maya," she said carefully, "this isn't just controlling behavior." My chest tightened. "What is it?" I paused. "This could be fraud." The word hit like a shockwave. Fraud. Legal. Serious. Real. "This isn't something you handle privately," she continued. If these documents are accurate, they've used your identity without consent. I felt my hands go cold. 'Cause that meant one thing. This wasn't just betrayal anymore. This was something they could lose everything over. And for the first time since this started, I wasn't the one at risk. They were. After that, I changed my approach completely. I stopped questioning, stopped reacting, stopped showing emotion. And that made them relax. Ruth smiled more. Evan seemed less tense. They thought I had accepted my place. But really, I had stepped out of their game. Because when people think they've won, they stop being careful. I listen more, watch more. And they started slipping, leaving documents open, speaking more freely, making assumptions. And every mistake they made, collected it, quietly, carefully. Because invisibility is powerful. No one guards themselves against someone they think is defeated. It happened at a family dinner. Ruth, of course, took control of the room like always. Maya is still learning, she said with a soft laugh. She's not quite ready to manage things on her own. Normally I would stay quiet. Not this time. Smiled. Controlled. Learning what exactly? Asked. The table went silent. Ruth blinked. Excuse me. I'm just curious, I continued. What is it you think I don't understand? Her confidence faltered, for just a second. But it was enough. 'Cause everyone saw it. Evan shifted uncomfortably. And for the first time, Ruth didn't have a perfect answer. That small crack changed everything. Because once people see weakness, they start asking questions. Later that night, Evan confronted me. What was that? He demanded. I stayed calm. A question. You embarrassed her. I laughed softly. No, Evan. She embarrassed herself. He ran his hands through his hair, pacing. This isn't like you. You're right, I said. It's not. Because I wasn't the same person anymore. He stopped pacing and looked at me. And for the first time, he looked unsure. You're changing, he said. He nodded. I have to. Because staying the same would have destroyed me. And deep down, he knew that. I found it late at night. A document buried deep in a folder Ruth thought I'd never check. Dated. And undeniable. My identity had been used without permission. This wasn't assumption anymore. This was proof. Clear. Direct. Final. I stared at the screen, my heart steady. Not racing. Not panicking. Just certain. Because this was the moment everything shifted. I wasn't collecting evidence anymore. I had enough. Now, it was time to act. I invited them to dinner. Same table. Same room. Same setup as the night everything started. Ruth looked pleased. It's good to see you taking initiative. Evan looked confused. But they both came. Course they did. Because they still thought they were in control. I set the table carefully. Placed everything exactly where it needed to be. Including the folder. Right in the center. And as we sat down, smiled. Because this time, I wasn't the one walking into a trap. They were. Ruth noticed it first. What's this? She asked. I slid it toward her. Go ahead, I said. Evan's face changed instantly. He knew. She opened it slowly. Confident. That confidence faded with every page. Transfer records. Loan documents. Signatures. Name. Without my consent, the room went quiet. Heavy. And for the first time, Ruth didn't speak. I didn't rush. I didn't yell. I just explained everything. Step by step. Clear. Precise. Ruth tried to interrupt once. I didn't let her. No, I said firmly. You've had enough control. That shut her down. Evan looked like he couldn't breathe. 'Cause there was no way out of this. No explanation that made sense. No lie big enough to cover the truth. And the silence that followed said everything. I've already spoken to a lawyer, I said. Evan's head snapped up. Ruth's face drained of color. And? She asked, her voice tight. And they're reviewing everything. That was it. That was the moment it all collapsed. Because control only works when no one challenges it. And I had. Legally. Publicly. Completely. Everything they built. Started falling apart right there at the table. I stood up. No drama. No shouting. No tears. I'm done, I said. Evan tried to speak. I didn't let him. Because there was nothing left to say. Ruth didn't move. Didn't speak. Didn't fight. 'Cause for once, she had no power left. I walked to the door, paused and looked back. Not with anger. Not with sadness. Just clarity. And then I left. Not broken. Not defeated. Free. Ruth thought control was strength. She thought silence meant weakness. She thought I would stay small. She was wrong. Because the moment she tried to control my marriage, she exposed herself. And lost everything. Her influence. Her control. Her reputation. Evan lost something too. Trust. And once that's gone, doesn't come back. As for me, I rebuilt. On my terms. Stronger. Martyr. Unstoppable. Because of this story, always remember that. Walking away is sometimes the strongest move you can make. Control collapses the moment accountability begins. When the truth is clear, silence becomes the loudest response. Truth doesn't need to be loud, it just needs to be undeniable. The best confrontations aren't emotional, they're prepared. There comes a point where knowing the truth means you have to do something about it. Growth feels like rebellion to people who benefited from your silence. Power starts to crumble the moment it's questioned publicly. Sometimes the strongest move is stepping back and letting others reveal themselves. The moment someone replaces your voice with their control, something deeper is already wrong. Betrayal doesn't always come loudly. Sometimes it's quiet, calm, and planned. Awareness is the first step to taking your power back. Sometimes silence isn't weakness, it's strategy. When someone rushes to shut you down, it's usually because you're getting too close to the truth. The louder someone claims control, the more likely they're covering chaos underneath. Independence isn't betrayal, it's protection when trust is broken. The truth hides in patterns, not in isolated moments. When people rush, it's usually because time is running out for them, not you. Trust without transparency isn't trust, it's control. The moment someone uses your name without your consent, it stops being personal, it becomes legal. The moment someone assumes you're trapped is the moment you gain the advantage. When emotions are high, facts become your strongest weapon. The truth becomes powerful when it moves from emotion to evidence. If this story taught you anything, let it be this. Never ignore red flags just because they come from family. Never let anyone take your voice and call it help. And most importantly, never underestimate the person you think you've silenced. Because one day, they'll tell the whole story. And that's when everything changes.